Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from the Colonial Dungeon, this is the Court-Martail Podcast! Introducing your host for this evening, he has a bald spot on the top of his head, and he weighs in tonight at a number you don't need to know. He is the Colonial Loudmouth, Sean McCarty! And welcome to another spectacular edition of the Court-Martail Podcast, where there is going to be rage, there's going to be hellfire, there's going to be brimstone, and there's going to be groaning, crying, screaming, all of the above. The emotions have never been higher for our Summerslam 2020 review. I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, and with me is the artist formerly known as Grammar Note Sky. He's written it down, he's getting it out today, and he's going to have to explain himself. Please welcome back to the show, the sparkiest plug, Skyler Greenberg. Welcome back.
I'm happy to be here, and I have some explaining to do, don't I?
Well, for those of you who are purely Court-Martail Podcast fans, and did not get the chance to listen to the Totally Awesome Podcast, our sister channel, if you will, the review that we did, both Josh Again and myself, of SummerSlam 2020, I'm going to throw that link in the description. Now, because we are a little pressed for time today, I'm going to keep my opinions kind of on the low key and let Skyler get out everything he needs to get. But if you'd like to hear all of my rage and ranting and a lot and promo cutting, I guess is the best way to put it, feel free to check that out. It is in the description below. It's a great hour and 40 minutes, but we included Skyler in grammar notes form a la the fax machine, which if you watch that podcast you'll understand what that means. But now he gets to explain himself and his reasons behind his like or dislike of certain things. Are you ready, Sky? This is going to be quite the podcast.
I would just like to point out that you used the word low-key after Joshua said that in my grammar notes he hated my use of the word low-key. So I'm assuming you're trying to piss him off on purpose.
Well, let's be clear here. He only told you that you couldn't say low-key. He knows he can't censor me, because I am a loudmouth who's going to say whatever I want to say at any time, at any place, and anywhere, and any day, any night, till the sun comes up or till the party rocks on. That's the way that I get it on. But as we move on, as we proceed to give you what you need, we start with Apollo Crews versus MVP on the pre-show. What did you think of this match?
So I want to start off by talking about the actual arena, because that is worth
the ThunderDome. The WWE ThunderDome. Yes.
Which, by the way, if you watch SmackDown the week before, Vince did come out and did say ThunderDome.
He did,
but
and I didn't.
He should have done it for pay-per-view, though.
Yeah, I didn't notice that because, I don't watch SmackDown, but I did, after the fact, I did realize that he did do that. It would have been more effective if he had come out and done it on SummerSlam, though. I agree.
But I have to say, the ThunderDome looks awesome, and then Kevin Dunn ruined it.
It's an interesting...
I hate the use of the virtual fans, because they're such a big distraction. Just have the graphics behind the wrestlers, and everything would have been fine, no problem.
Yeah, especially because all the fans kept glitching out, and there were adjacent spaces, and somebody threw Pikachu on it, and they're really... fans are now really exploiting this whole thing.
Right, there was on Monday Night Raw a picture of a guy in a KKK mask, and then there was briefly a picture of Chris Benoit.
What passionate fans WWE has.
But anyways, this pre-show match between Apollo Crews and MVP, it wasn't anything special. It wasn't anything particularly interesting. I will say that I do love Crews' offense. His offense,
it looks great.
Power and speed was great.
Yeah.
But this whole hum match for the United States Championship that ended, it was an 8-minute match or something, whatever. Had this been on the main card of SummerSlam, it either would have been the second or third best match of that card.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's And that's not praising Cruz and MVP because they worked an okay match. They didn't work a great match. That's an indictment on the SummerSlam card itself.
Yeah, that's pretty foreboding, and I would agree. I mean, that was my second favorite match of the whole show, and I liked it just for the fact that it was simple, which is not something WWE likes to do. They love really overcomplicating and overbooking things, as we have seen time and time again, and as we're going to see multiple times tonight. Kevin Dunn, speaking of Kevin Dunn ruining things, got the brand new belt, got the old graphic. So, way to go, Kevin Dunn. You couldn't have just made the new graphic for that. Like, who is responsible for making that video package, team? Get on your game.
Clearly, Kevin Dunn likes the old design better.
Kevin Dunn likes things that we just do not understand. And,
he needs to get with the times.
Yeah. And he really does.
But now we have Cruz, after defeating MVP, going on to face Bobby Lashley. And do you think that has the potential to be a sleeper match for Payback?
I think that's going to actually be quite good. If they don't put it on the pre-show, I think that match has the potential to be quite good.
Oh, you have no faith whatsoever.
I don't.
And here's the thing, guys, to the Court-Martail podcast viewers. Everyone knows that Joshua has hatred for this company as badly as he hates WWE 13.
Yes.
And Sean's hatred of WWE goes back generational.
But I try, at least in this podcast, I'm trying to remain low key. I got a lot of very angry rants out. I mean, I cut a lot of angry promos on the Totally Awesome podcast because, of course, Josh again is also an enabler when it comes to hatred. So it's easy to get worked up.
Right.
But
my point is that of the three of us, I'm probably the most optimistic about the product.
Yes.
And even myself, I felt indifferent to the show because when I saw the card, I saw one match I really wanted to see, and 7 other matches I really didn't want to see.
Yeah, and the rest, I mean, MVP, the one thing with MVP is that superplex looked like he rotated poorly on that. It looked like he landed straight on his hip.
Yeah, I noticed that too, that he did not look right after that.
Yeah, that looked nasty. And one thing
I was able to get through the match, and everything was pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, everything was solid. I mean, there was nothing egregiously offensive about this match, which I think was a big part of me liking this match, was that it was simple. Like you said, it wasn't anything special, but it was endearing in that way. So, I'm all for it.
But let's move on. We have something more offensive we need to talk about.
Now, before we get to that, I'm going to mention something here that I didn't mention on the other podcast, just because I wanted to keep some things exclusive to this podcast. You know how WWE, this is a Kevin Dunn tried and true method. You know how they always do that back-walking tracking shot of wrestlers walking to the ring? Or like walking backstage like as they're headed towards the ring? They did it with Asuka right before the show started. I am so sick of that. Especially because Asuka was like doing her little half dance, like to nobody in particular. And that tracking shot, it's just lame. It doesn't show intensity on people anymore. Because people are just kind of, they're being overly cartoony rather than putting their game face on when they do that track shot. So it's lost all of its meaning.
True, although it works with certain people when they have a serious face, but it doesn't work with people who are happy-go-lucky.
Well, especially when they're being told that they have to do that. Like, they tell Asuka, do your dance as you're heading towards the ring. For who? Like, who cares whether she's just frolicking in the back before she gets ready? I understand it's part of Asuka's whole charisma thing, but, like, you could have her game face on in that track shot and then have her do the dance, come out to the entrance, and it would feel the exact same.
That is true. But we have a lot of things we need to get through because there's a lot of things to talk about this card. So let's get to it.
And we'll start with the, speaking of Asuka, we'll start with the opening match. It is the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. The 319-day reigning Bayley going one-on-one against Asuka with Sasha Banks at ringside. Your impressions?
So, I created a little bit of controversy when I said that I like this match more than the Sasha match. And I'm going to hold true to that, despite the fact that the Sasha match, on the technical terms, was better than Bayley's match. This match in particular was clunky.
Yep.
There was a lot of miscommunication.
Yep.
There were a lot of missed spots.
Yep.
It really felt like these two were not in sync.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Good way to put it.
Now, something that people have been telling me is that why does WWE do house shows? Because they're not profitable? Well, there's two major reasons. One, to experiment with things on house shows in front of a smaller crowd before you bring it out for a TV or a big show.
Yep.
And
well, it's a big show. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry. Continue. You said the magic words.
Fine. Damn it, Paul White.
Got him.
The second reason is that you work with whoever you're going to wrestle against at a pay-per-view or at a TV show, so you get that timing down, so you get that communication down.
Yep.
And that's clearly what was missing here, is that Bayley and Asuka clearly did not have that communication down, despite the fact that they've wrestled together before. When you haven't wrestled someone in a while, you really need to get that timing. Otherwise, it's going to look like it did this match.
Yeah.
Now, despite all of that, I still like this match more than the Sasha match for two specific reasons. I'm going to mention one now, and I'll mention the other one when we get to the Sasha match.
Okay.
But with this particular match, I'm going to admit I have a bias for Bayley because I've always liked her. And the reason I've always liked her is that when I got into professional wrestling around 2014, because I was kind of in and out between 09 and 14.
Oh, sure.
Because, that was lean.
Yeah.
That was lean years. But 2014, I was just out of college. I was working at a gift shop in my local city of San Jose. And I found out that at the gift shop I used to work at, there was a person who used to be working there. And then she left, and she went to Florida, and she trained at NXT. And I found out from those coworkers that person was Bayley.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
I got to ask her coworkers and get to know more about Bayley.
That's pretty cool.
Her personality, even know her nickname. And it gave me something to root for because I kind of know this person. And
sure.
She's from the Bay Area region. She represents the Bay Area and San Jose specifically, which is my hometown. So she is the hometown wrestler for me, and I always try to root for her.
Fair enough.
And I will say this. This finish did not help either of them.
No.
I hated this finish.
This finish was bad.
Because it made Asuka look stupid, and it made Bayley look like someone who can't win on her own.
Yes. And kind of to your point, I'm going to briefly fly through my notes with this. The more that I thought about this match, the less I blamed Bayley for this. Because Bayley really did her best in this one. I would say of anything that was wrong with this, Bayley was not that. Because Bayley, she was healing it up well. She was doing the chokes on the corner. Her facials were good. She always can cut a pretty decent promo. She was working well on the leg. She did. It went long for my tastes. And the comeback, I think that this was more of a mark on Asuka not really being as good as I thought she was. Maybe just because of the circumstances around this whole thing. Like, we talked about it prior to the show. Asuka, when it comes to this whole set of matches, was not really the focus at all. Because the story was about Bayley and Sasha and about, like, what they were doing with each other. I think you're right with the finish as far as why Asuka would break an armbar just because Sasha was, like, waving the Raw Women's title in front of her made no sense. And then Sasha taking the dive only to get, like, a small package that Bayley won with?
It was a small package roll-up.
Yeah, it made Asuka look like a total knob. And it was just, it didn't do anything for that. And then all the knee selling and the leg work that Bayley did, Asuka never really sold throughout the whole show.
So I'm going to get to it specific, Asuka selling specifically in the Sasha match, because I thought it was worse in the Sasha match, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yes,
I'm just going to say, I'm I'm just going to say this right now. Most likely, what I personally think is that Asuka is just a plot device. She is the MacGuffin of this storyline between Sasha and Bayley.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Yeah.
That they use her as the MacGuffin.
Yeah, because it doesn't do anything for her. It doesn't add to her star power or her allure. Not to say that she has any left, because that's what WWE likes to do with all of their talent. But this was
specifically their Japanese talent.
Yeah, and at the very least, she didn't get put away by like an elbow drop or a belly to belly, so it wasn't like a straight up clean loss. But I really, really would have liked her to sell more, at least from what Bayley, because Bayley was really trying. I think she worked really hard on this one. I hate the ring announcer. I hate Greg Hamilton, because he just sounds.
Yes.
He is so overly animated and cartoony and hokey that it just takes me out of the moment. Like I said, it sounds like he's having a seizure when he says Kevin Owens or Asuka. You know, he goes that. You know, it's like
he's that college kid that was in the thespian society who took too much Adderall and got a microphone and decided to become a ring announcer.
Either that or like the guy who like tries to lead the pep rallies, but nobody really likes him or cares about him at all. So he tries to like overhand
He's the high school president that tries to lead the pep
rallies. Yeah, he's totally that guy trying to hype up the fans, but it's like nobody cares about the dude at all, but he thinks like he's doing such a great job. So this match was honestly probably better than I saw it the first time around, but at the same time,
it had its marks that made it not so good.
Yeah,
and just turned it into either an okay match or a dreadful match, depending on your viewpoint.
They made Asuka look like an idiot. That was the thing that bothered me the most.
But speaking of making people look like idiots,
yes,
we have a tag team match.
Well, before we get to that, Dominic cuts a promo with Ray in the back, and Dominic, God bless him, sounded so robotic and so wooden, because that's what WWE makes all of their promos to sound like. It's what they did with Seth Rollins, which doesn't make any sense to me, because the guy can cut a hell of a fired up promo. And Dominic, for a guy who was supposed to be mad at the fact that he took his father's eye out and whipped him with a cane, didn't sound like he really cared. And I don't think that's Dominic's fault. It's what they tell them to do.
Yeah, I got nothing from the promo with Rey Mysterio, Angie, and Walter Mysterio. This was just, it was there.
It was there.
All it was.
Which is a shame, because it could have really been a good moment to really hype up that match, and it just didn't work. Then Owen showed up, and the only reason Owen showed up was that he was talking about how he was going to have Aleister Black on the Owen show the next on Raw. So like there really wasn't a purpose for him being there.
No. John, let me take this one, please.
Okay.
Let me take this.
The match is the Street Profits defending their Raw Tag Team titles against Angel Garza and Andrade with a very sexy-looking Zelina Vega. I'm going to let you, because you asked for this specific promo time. The floor is yours. Take it away.
I absolutely hated that Kevin Owens would dare to wear a Street Profits shirt, because the Street Profits are the worst tag team ever since Enzo and Cass. Montez Ford is a slightly less offensive Enzo Amore with a little bit better wrestling ability, but he has the exact same energy and the exact same annoyingness.
I say slightly less annoying.
And Angelo Dawkins is a less impressive, less interesting Big Cass.
I can never remember that dude's name. Angelo Dawkins, ever.
I have it in front of me. That's how I can remember it. But Angelo Dawkins.
You're cheating, sir.
I have my notes in front of me.
That's fine.
Angelo Dawkins is the most ride-by-seat tag team partner I've ever seen in my entire life. This match was so bad because it starts with Montez Ford going hot. He's going off on the two heels. And then he starts getting beat up by the heels. And then we build to a hot tag to Angelo Dawkins, who's supposed to be the hero. And then Angelo Dawkins does a couple of awkward-looking moves. And what makes this worse is that he tags back out to Montez Ford.
That made no sense.
Getting his ass beat, and was never back in the match. He was there for a hot tag and then tagged right back out.
Yep. This made no sense. None of this made sense. None of this
I
made
feel
sense.
so sorry for Andrade and Angel Garza for having to be involved with these two guys, who are also both willing partners in cinematic matches over the last 3 months, which you and me and Joshua have all agreed are the worst thing on this earth.
Yeah, those got old real quick, didn't they?
These
Real
are the
quick.
same two guys who are involved in a triathlon, in bowling, in golf, fighting ninjas, in a garbage compactor.
Turkey legs.
They clearly don't.
Don't forget the
They
turkey
clearly do
legs.
not. How could I forget those? They clearly have no respect or no care for the wrestling business or themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves. I do not want to see them on my TV, and they can just get off the TV right now. It would be the best thing in my life. Take over, please.
Okay. Well, while Mr. Greenberg grabs a glass of water to calm down, I'm gonna pick up on the hatred here. First of all, so the Street Profits, they come in and one holds one solo cup and the other holds solo cups, and in an arena full of nobody, solo cups start raining down from the ceiling. And all of the announcers are like, yay, yes, solo cups. Who was that for? Who?
That was for the janitor. And
Yeah,
I'm
that
pretty
was for
sure
the
janitor
custodian.
quit the second those cups.
Who
hit
the hell
ground.
was
I'm
that
not
for? Nobody was going to get those solo cups. No one was going to be like, here, Johnny, son of a bitch, take this home with you. You're going to remember your first WWE show. Nobody was there. And then they get in the ring and they do it again. And they drop more cups down. There was no purpose for this at all. This was for nobody. Who was going to pick up those cups? And then there was just, and then it was just a whole bunch of nothing. Montez Ford, I would love to put a blue dot on that dude's face. He just, his bulging eyes, it's just, I hate it. I hate it. And then,
the finish of this match, making Zelina Vega look stupid for distracting her clients while they were winning the match, leading to their loss.
Then gets super kicked. Well, I think it was Garza super kicks whichever one it was
Ford.
into Zelina, and then they do their whole whatever their big double team movements, and that's it. And for the second match in a row, they've made the losers look like complete knobheads. Like, what? You don't have to do this to these people. You don't need to make them look like total jackasses. What? It was just, this whole thing was just bad. There was backslap tags. The shining the baby faces, which was what you were talking about as far as Montez starting in hot against the heels. That lasted what, 90 seconds, if that, and then he got power bombed. There was no heat spot. It didn't get them any heat. There was no comeback really. The hot tag was not much of a hot tag. It was pretty cold.
For 2 minutes, and then the guy came tagged back out.
Yeah, it was just. I don't think that this match would have been any better if it went any longer. I think this was just straight up bad. Zelina Vega looking fine was the best part of this match. And
oh yes.
And that was really that was it. That was really it.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk
we're going to move right along. Otherwise, we're both going to need to get pacemakers put in so we don't have strokes. Then we had an ice cream bar commercial, which I was kind of hoping that anyone on that show that was actually still on that show would be able to promote those. But we got Becky Lynch and John Cena and teaser of Roman Reigns. Then they did that Sasha and Bailey promo in a ring that was allegedly backstage. Where the hell was that ring?
Skip it.
It was.
Skip it.
It was just bad.
I have no time for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do not care about that promo.
It was just bad. And they did the actual broom thing, and anyway. Mandy and Sonya, this, you and I have very different opinions of this match. I'm going to let you go first. What did you think?
Okay, so I did something that I promised myself I wouldn't do, but I did it anyways. I rewatched this match, and upon second examination, I realized when I wrote down my notes that I was giving them way too much of a pass over real-life circumstances, and the real-life circumstances are bad.
Yes, obviously.
That's why I gave them such a big pass.
Sure, and they do to some degree are afforded that.
And you could tell how unfocused both of them were because of how much they were affected by this.
Sure.
But this match did not deserve a stipulation. They didn't even use the stipulation of a no disqualification because Sonya, besides out of 2 chair shots and Mandy Rose barely knowing how to set up a table.
And never paying it off, no less.
They did not use the stipulation whatsoever. I thought both wrestlers looked okay in spots to really bad in others. They clearly had no flow. There was no real synergy between the two of them, and it was awkward, and it just did not get out of first gear. This was not a good match.
This was not a good match. This, to me, here's the thing. First of all, Sonya Deville comes down looking like broken Matt Hardy, which I thought was kind of funny. But Sonya has a real hard time setting up the table, or not Sonya, I'm sorry, Mandy.
Mandy.
Mandy sets up the table. Then this was just boring. This was just boring. Even that guy riding the train is like, yes, it was boring. It was just bad. I mean, they kind of fought around outside the ring a little bit, and then they set up the table. They did, like you said, 2 chair shots. The thing that bothered me about this match was 2 things. First of all, they always mention Sonya's MMA background, but I have never seen her actually use it.
Hold on, Sean. Let's not overblow this, okay? Sonya Deville's MMA background is 2-1 in regional fights. That's not much of an MMA background. It's not like she went like 5-0 or 6-0 against notable competition.
Right.
She was a regional fighter who won 2 fights and lost 1 fight.
But you know, if they're gonna mention that about Sonya all the time, then she has to have something in her gimmick that backs that up. So either don't mention it, or change up what she's doing. But here's the thing that bothered me, and I mentioned this on the TAP, and I could not unsee it. And I want to know if you actually caught it this time. What I've inferred from watching Al Snow training videos and listening to a unfathomable amount of Jim Cornette, as well as other wrestlers and other things that like explain how the ring, when you hit the ropes, what you want to try to do, instead of hitting them with your shoulders square and flat, is you want to hit them with an angle, almost like your right hip is hitting that second rope back, like you're just tilted just a little bit, and then your right arm comes over the top of the top rope so that you have some sort of brace so that rope doesn't come back and snap your neck in half, right? Sonya, every time she hit the rope square and got no momentum off it. And she did it every single time, and I could not unsee it.
She looked like a broomstick being thrown against the ropes and coming off the ropes.
It was, and
I don't necessarily know if that's a training issue or if that's just her, but either way, it looked bad.
It could have just been lack of focus, but it also could have been, I don't know what they teach at the Performance Center. I don't know, because like another example is, remember Humberto Carrillo, what he used to do is, instead of putting his arm over the top rope, he would just lay it down. Remember that? He would do like the double hands, but he would just lay them like to his sides, and that's almost even more dangerous. So I know that there's certain things you can do to make yourself more distinguishable, but that's not really one of them. When it comes to safety, that's not really one of them. This match was just boring.
And the finish for this match is Mandy Rose hitting a couple of knees, and then hitting a finisher, and then hitting another knee just because she wanted to.
And that was it. And Awesome Kong's lawsuit is pending, by the way.
Oh, yes.
And
then to take one final shit on this match, Mr. Money in the Bank Otis comes out, and Mandy, in her celebration with Otis, proceeds to do the worst worm I have ever seen in my life.
Out comes the Kool-Aid Man, because I will not refer to him as his name.
And the Kool-Aid Girl does the worst worm I've ever seen.
I mean, yeah. I mean, as if this could have gotten any worse. I mean, at this point, I was so just disgusted with the whole thing. I didn't even care. I was just like, let's just move on, because this was just bad. The little caterpillar thing. I mean, I don't even like it when Otis does it either, honestly. I mean, it's another one of those.
Scotty Too Hotty should come up to both of them and slap them both in the face for even trying to do his move.
He's too busy fighting fires, man. That dude is a G. Shout out to you, Scotty Too Hotty. If you ever want to be on the show, just hit me up. I will. But anyway,
that plug in.
and anyway, could you
What's the
imagine?
next match?
Could you imagine before we get to that I get like a comment from Scotty Jihadi going like, "Hey, by the way, let me in. I'm happy to talk about it." But anyway.
Oh, I want to be there for that. I got some questions about Too Cool.
Now let's come up, moving on to another match with the exact same stipulation. Dominic Mysterio in his first match ever in a street fight, even though he's in regular wrestling attire, and most of this was a regular wrestling match, against Seth Rollins with Buddy Murphy. And the reason I brought up the promo with Dominic before is that Dominic asked Ray to not interfere, but then he brings Ray out to ringside. Why? What? Yawn. Exactly. Yawn. That's a perfect interpretation of what we're talking about here. What did you think?
So this was too long.
Yes.
This went way too long.
Yes.
Okay. So the storytelling in the match was good. Seth Rollins was really good as a heel here, trying to get the heat with the attire mimicking Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero.
That was nice.
The constant looks at Rey Mysterio and the constant talking and trash talking and taunting, all that was fine. Even the wrestling moves that they were doing and all the violent stuff that they were doing was really good. I don't have anything about that I'm going to critique.
Right. Dom's got potential. Absolutely has potential.
This went way too long. You could clearly tell that they were overbooking for someone who is either inexperienced or doesn't have enough training.
Yep. Seth really carried Dom in this one, and it was apparent, but he did a great job doing it.
They proceeded with the first half, which was a wrestling match. Then they went to a street fight. Then Seth Rollins handcuffed Rey Mysterio, so he's helpless and he can't help his son, despite the fact that his son told him not to help at all. And then his mother, one-face Angie, shows up to the top of the ring,
Concerned mom,
gets to look at the ring with her one face. Seth Rollins starts walking up for all 5 seconds before Dom charges him. You didn't even need Angie. You could have had her not appear, and this match would have been better because you would have taken time away from it.
There was legitimately no point in having her there. I mean, she would have been better served at ringside. Like, not even like at ringside, but like behind the barricade. Like, if she was the only fan there. But
no, not have her involved at all, because she was not helpful whatsoever.
It didn't do anything for the match. I mean, at this point, I was already just like, this match was for a street fight. This match was so sterile. I felt like they were mad at each other. I didn't understand why there had to be 10 minutes of a wrestling match if in kayfabe, Dominic's trying to get even with Seth because he took out his father's eye and he whipped him with a cane, but then we're going to do like a feeling out process? Like, if you're mad and you get in a street fight and you want to beat the piss out of somebody, just start beating the piss out of somebody. You know, it's like, I don't think we needed the first 10 minutes of this match.
The same thing with the Mandy and Sonya match is that it's supposed to be a blood feud. They advertised it as a blood feud, but there didn't really feel like there was any emotion there.
No, it was way too clean cut and sterile, and that's a WWE formatting problem. It doesn't have anything to do with PG. It doesn't need to have juice. It's just its attitude, its energy involved.
And the worst part and the worst indictment on this match, and the fact that this match, for all its boringness, for all of its unexcitement, it was probably the second or third best match on this card.
Yeah.
And that should let you know how bad SummerSlam was. Yeah,
it really was. And it was like, Kevin Dunn was really insufferable here. I mean, between the poor syncing up of the pumped-in crowd noise, or the 10 camera cuts for the corner punches that Dominic did, where it was like, punch, camera cut, camera cut, camera cut, punch, camera cut, camera cut, camera cut, punch.
Don't forget to zoom in and out on people's faces.
Oh, it was just... He just made it even worse. The only thing that the only really other thing I wanted to say, and this one is going to be a little controversial, but I want to reiterate it here. Dominic goes for the frog splash twice. I really wish they would stop mentioning Eddie Guerrero with the frog splash. Here's why. I love Eddie. I think that goes without saying, that we all love Eddie Guerrero. That's not That's not the issue here. The issue here is that every time you mention Eddie Guerrero when you do a frog splash, instead of amping up how good a frog splash whoever did it did, what you're making people psychologically in the fans believe is, oh yeah, remember when Eddie Guerrero did that? We should watch some Eddie Guerrero matches. He was great. Instead of actually elevating your talent and making them go like, oh, that dude does a mean frog splash. Instead of, oh, he does what Eddie used to do really well. Let's go watch Eddie. You know, you're not enhancing your talents any.
Not to mention, it's been 15 years since the last Eddie Guerrero match. There's a generation of kids who don't even know who Eddie Guerrero is.
Boy, that's depressing. That is really depressing. But
okay, let's move on because I don't want to get any more sad.
Yeah. They showed the Tampa Bay Stadium,
angry,
so I got that going for me. This was still, up to this point, Seth was a bastard. I mean, I wish this finish wasn't just a regular curb stomp. But at this point, I didn't care.
I didn't care enough about this finish.
At this point,
I didn't care about this finish.
I just wanted it to end. That's where we were. And speaking of wanting things to end, we come to our second women's title match of the night, the Raw Women's Championship. Sasha Banks, who has, to this day, and continue to this day, holds the record for most consecutive first title defense losses in women's wrestling history. Sasha Banks versus Asuka with Bayley at ringside. You've got some promos to cut on this, sir.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. When the Bayley match ended the way it did, I already knew how this match was going to go. I already knew before the bell had even rung that Sasha Banks was going to lose. And there was no tension in the match whatsoever. Even if this match was technically better than the Bayley match, I already knew that Sasha was going to lose. And the reason why is not because of the fault of the talents, but because of the storyline that they have been presenting and the fact that Sasha is not a winner. She has never defended the Raw Women's Championship. She has barely defended the Tag Team Championship successfully. I think she's only done it once or twice.
I bet they'll lose it on Sunday, too.
Sasha Banks is not the boss. She is the loser.
Yep.
And that is an indictment on WWE and taking one of the four best women wrestlers of this generation. The four horsewomen are recognized as the four best wrestlers among the female side of this generation and taking one of them and ruining her. But she's not the only person I'm angry at. This match was an hour after the Bayley match.
Yep.
And Asuka could not sell anything. It was almost like she refused to sell. Honestly, there could be a rainstorm outside right now and she could not sell me an umbrella because she probably wouldn't try.
She should have come out limping. That to me,
she should come out limping, or she should have at least sold it. Halfway through this match, I was like, wait a minute, doesn't she supposed to have a leg injury?
She never got hurt, allegedly.
And at one point, she was selling the right leg, and then she started selling the left leg, and I'm like, wait, you forgot which leg you're supposed to sell?
Well, she was in two matches, but you could never have told, you would never been able to tell if she was in two matches. And I honestly, it was at this point I really felt bad for the commentary because they tried to justify why she wasn't selling, and you know that was tough on them because like it was, I forget who it was, I think it was Tom Phillips who was like, oh yeah, she's really trying to hide the fact that her leg is hurt. You know, she's trying not to, like, basically like, no, you should be selling, so we understand that she has to come from behind. But this never felt like she was the underdog, which was the whole story the angle they were trying to go with this.
She didn't feel involved. She was the plot device.
Yep.
But I'm going to go specifically on Asuka, because I want to talk about her for a very quick second.
Yeah.
Asuka is recognized as not at the horsewomen's level, but very close to it. She's one of the very few women who is almost at that level. And the fact that she could not sell injuries, which is such a basic thing, really hurt my stock of her. Now,
Same.
She has been presented as a force, and I recognize that as a force or as a buzzsaw, you're not going to be tasked with being able to sell all the time. But you should at least be familiar enough with the concept that when the time comes and you have to sell, then sell the damn match. Because you are wrestling two of the four best women's wrestlers, and you can't even get out a decent match with two of them.
Yeah, this was rough for Asuka. I mean, this was one that you would expect on paper. You'd expect both of these matches to be terrific, and neither of them were even, in my opinion, that good. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I really do.
They were house show matches, and this is SummerSlam, one of the big four. In some ways, the big two, because it's either SummerSlam or WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It's one of the big four pay-per-views. And I understand, some wrestlers, they have off nights. Not every wrestler is going to wrestle great all the time. I don't expect Ric Flair to put up 5-star matches every single night he's on in his prime. But at least bring a decent enough match together so that I can go along with it. And I could not go along with this match.
Where are the agents? Where are the people telling Asuka, hey, you got to sell your leg a lot more, man? Like, I didn't get it. Like, where are the people critiquing and telling these people how to grow and improve? And I feel like there's nobody doing that on the main roster at all. And that's really hurt me. Like, Asuka's knee bar on the outside, which made no sense. You can't win out there. You can't get a tap out there if you're disqualified or counted out.
If she was the champion and she was a heel, that would be perfect. But it was a wrong role reversal.
It didn't make any sense. None of the shit that she did the entire night made any sense. She didn't sell. Her moves didn't make any sense. Her logic didn't make any sense. Asuka, tonight probably was no less favorable to anybody than it was Asuka.
No. I would argue it would be Sasha Banks. Because once again, with this finish of Bayley kind of getting involved, kind of not getting involved, but then tapping out clean to Asuka reinforces the fact that she is a loser. And I am not looking forward to the Sasha Banks-Bayley storyline because it is 2 years too late and too much has changed. And Bayley makes a decent heel. She is good enough as a heel that she can carry that storyline. But Sasha is not a good enough babyface to carry it.
No, agreed. Sasha is a bad babyface. That was one thing that I hated about her feud with Charlotte, is that she just did not garner any support from me. She just couldn't do it. She's just better as a heel. And I think that this is just, the dynamic of that feud is going to suck. I think that this setup, in the same way that Drew's title reign has not felt as important because of the way he won it, this feud is not going to feel anywhere near important because of the way it started. After 2 years, we're reignited, or whatever you want to call this. This was just, I don't even know what to say anymore about it. Asuka looked stupid and makes me not want to see her as much as I used to. And
Sasha Banks looks like a loser.
Yeah, which was the theme of the night. Making the losers feel like losers was the entirety of this show.
But let's move on to something good.
Except for this match, which was Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton for the WWE title. This match should have gone last. Because this was the match of the night.
Regardless of Roman Reigns' return. So, I got a little bit heated from you guys because you guys thought that I was crazy for saying this was better than Pat McAfee versus Adam Cole.
Well, okay, before we get to that, I think that this match was equal to Pat McAfee versus Adam Cole. I think that there was just a shock to Pat McAfee's ability and the fact that he was such a good heel for it. You knew that Drew and Orton were going to be good because these two are consummate professionals and they know how to work. I did not expect Pat McAfee to be able to work. And I think that's what that boiled down to. But I would say, in my opinion, those two matches were pretty much on par with each other. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So first things first, I do not like the Tequila Sunrise as a finisher. It is the one part of that match I would have changed because it looks too contrived as a wrestling move.
Agreed. And it's funny because I'm sure you already heard Corny give his opinion on it, but that pretty much...
Yeah, that's kind of where I got that from. But secondly, how ironic is it that the matches that have blood feuds on this show had no emotion to them, and this particular match not only had the emotion, but it had the actual blood.
Yeah, because Orton headbutted Drew and busted himself open, and then raked Drew into the eye, and then his fingernails cut Drew open.
Are you so sure that wasn't on purpose?
Yeah, because if it was on
Because
purpose, they would have gotten more juice out of that, I think.
well, here's the thing. Maybe in future matches we get more juice.
That'd
But
be nice.
anyways, beyond that, this particular match was excellent.
Yeah.
It was the match that Drew McIntyre needed in his championship reign because up to this point, he's had a good match with Seth Rollins, an okay match against Bobby Lashley, and whatever the fuck against Dolph Ziggler.
I actually really liked that
And
match with Drew and Bobby. I thought that match was better than most people expected.
it was okay until the finish.
Wow, what a surprise! But
Isn't that surprising?
yeah,
WWE match.
what a big surprise.
But back to this match. This was excellent.
Yeah,
There are no better heels like Randy Orton. There are no
Yep.
better baby faces like Drew McIntyre.
Yep.
And the thing with this match is that it did have the tension because you did feel like all it takes is one RKO and Randy Orton can win this match.
yeah. Or one
And
Claymore
they
and Drew
played
could
on
win this
that
match.
because
Yep.
They played on that by teasing the RKO but never hitting it. They teased on it with Drew McIntyre trying to hit the Claymore and never hitting it. I have to give WWE credit because this match had no finishers, but it had the same amount of excitement because we were building up to them but never got them.
Well, and this match was just evidence that Drew and Orton are just leagues ahead of everybody else on this roster as far as working goes. I mean, they told a story without doing much of anything, but I was so captivated in this, I did not even care about the virtual fans. I was so invested in the way that they told this story and how it worked and the way that they were able to just manipulate Orton actually selling his knee throughout the match. Who'd have thought? You know, it's
Also,
like,
take notes.
yeah, that's literally what I said in my notes was Asuka take notes, because this was a clinic. This was literally a wrestling how-to, like how to get things across without resorting to cheap finishers or resorting to cheap tactics, and it was, but Orton still got heat. It was just the entire thing. I have no bad things to say about it. I have to mention though real quick, speaking of selling, so Shawn Michaels got punted in the face like 3 nights before, and they do the HBK clip, and there are two things that made me laugh about this. First of all, couldn't Shawn have put a neck brace on or something to sell that?
It would have messed with the sexy boy face.
No, it wouldn't. What? That's covered in a beard that he's bald now? No. And number two, Shawn Michaels of all people saying, "I don't want to wish bad luck on anybody," and I've never done that. I'm like,
Sure,
Shawn, you're not fooling anybody here. It's like, we know who you are.
He of the guy who lost his smile.
I know, but it's a different Shawn Michaels. I know he's changed a lot from those days. It was just funny because it's just like, is this the same dude? Like, but there was so much actual selling, like the eye rake, great heat spot, got a good comeback. Drew missing that Claymore and landing square on his back was brilliant. He did not pull back on that. He went full-fledged for it.
He went for it like he meant to, and not enough people do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
I hate the flying nothing, because the flying nothing means, oh, I'm trying to be in the right spot for a move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know you and I have different opinions on this finish.
So let me explain. So I think Drew McIntyre went for the Claymore. He missed it. Randy Orton went for the RKO. Drew McIntyre reversed it into a backslide pin.
Yes.
So the reason why I didn't like this finish is that it was an awkward finish to me because they've been building up to this violent match and they were talking about their finishers. But in particular, the real reason why I didn't like this match is because I have been trained to hate throw-up finishes from WWE, because when they do them, they feel like cheap wins.
Yes. I can
and
agree
we
with
had
that.
2 of them on this show, and they were both cheap wins, and I just groaned. This one, I'm okay with. I'm okay with it because I want to see more.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they needed to do.
Yes. It's all about the context of why you do that. And I think a lot of that is also, because of WWE's format, a lot of that is lost on today's audience. Because, like you said, WWE has conditioned fans to, so when this happens, We do it poorly, so you don't care or you get angry. Instead of having it in a context like this where you can be like, oh, snap, so they didn't get this right, and now, it was done right. They do things right so infrequently that the initial reaction is, oh, screw that, rather than, oh, now I want to see them fight again. I loved this finish. I thought it was great. I want to see another match between these two really badly
hopefully
now.
it's going to happen. It's not going to happen at Payback because Randy Orton punted Drew's head on Raw, and Drew's going to be selling that. So
Yep.
maybe at the September pay-per-view.
That'd be at whatever Night of Champions, or they might just push it into a Hell in a Cell. And I don't know about you, I know that Hell in a Cell, I wish it would stop being a pay-per-view. I wish they'd just do it for those big important feuds. But I'm very much all in on seeing a Drew McIntyre Randy Orton Hell in a Cell match.
That would be fantastic.
All for that.
But what I'm not fantastic about is the following match.
Oh God, on to our main event. In the third of our very sterile, no disqualification, no rules matches, are very clean cut, nicely clean shaven, trimmed, even though both these guys have beards. Bray Wyatt versus The Fiend versus Braun Strowman for the Universal Candy Strip title. They started out this match by saying that these two are two movie monsters, and they immediately took me out of the moment with that phrase. Because these shouldn't be movie monsters, they should just be monsters. These should be selling that these are people mad at each other trying to win a prize, rather than whatever the hell this has been.
So, remember a year ago when The Fiend was born and there was so much excitement about the Fiend character?
Where are we at now?
Where we're at now. These were two guys in a really bad Falls Count Anywhere match. Falls Count Anywhere implies that the fall will count anywhere. They only went to two places, the ring and Gorilla, and they didn't do anything else.
And Kevin Dunn made sure that we didn't see any of the production side of Gorilla too, which I thought was very fun.
Yes, because Vince McMahon didn't want to be seen in the red lights.
Fair enough.
They hit each other with moves. They hit each other with weapons. I did not care. I was counting the clock because I wanted the match to end.
Yeah.
Of course, the table no-sells Braun's offense because the table has been taking pointers from Asuka.
And in Vince's defense, I wouldn't want to be associated with this match either, so I don't blame them for not getting the shot of him.
And then this finish. I'm a restaurant worker. I work with box cutters. When you use a box cutter, you cut in straight lines. And I was offended that Braun Strowman does one straight line correctly to cut up the ring, and then he does a curve, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing a curve? You don't do that with a box cutter. And clearly Braun Strowman learned where to cut with a box cutter, the same place that Mandy Rose learned how to set up a table.
I'm convinced.
Imagine WWE trying to put together a barbecue party and the terrible setupness of it.
I am convinced that Braun Strowman, up until Sunday night, had never used a box cutter in his entire life. I don't think he knew what it was. I don't think he knew what to do with it. He couldn't adjust it. He literally took it out and tried to adjust it, and then he just looked at it like, box cutter. And he went into the ring and just cut it up so poorly.
Could you not take 5 minutes with these people to show them how to set up a table and how to use a box cutter?
Yeah, it was
when you're asking them to do the simple things, ask them, hey, Braun, do you know how to use a box cutter? No, I don't. Wait, really? Okay,
what is box cutter?
Shit.
Yeah, this was just, the only thing that was good about this was two things. One, we escaped tonight without a cinematic match. And two, we didn't get in-ring intros for this match.
That is true.
That was pretty much it.
I want to counter your guys' point that you made about using the box cutter to stab people. Box cutters are not that sharp on purpose. They don't do that.
Well, they do if you get you do if you get like a utility knife and you change the blade and you're using like a razor blade, but
Well, I'm assuming that it's a regular box cutter. Like, it was actually. I want to say something. I didn't see a logo on that box cutter, and I really am interested to know what company made it because it looks like a shitty box cutter.
I'm sure it was probably like a $2 Walmart box
It's
cutter.
probably from the same. Honestly, that toolbox is probably from the same guy who owned that truck at the WrestleMania 36 with Edge, DDT, Randy Orton.
It was probably just a box cutter
guy.
they've had in the warehouse for like 15 years, and
No,
they've just never changed the blade.
I'm pretty sure there's some guy who sets up the ring and he has a really shitty box cutter and a really shitty truck.
Oh, the guy who owned the Ford. Oh yeah, that dude. That's right. It's
I can't wait to see when the next product that we can make fun of.
Well,
but
the other thing that just bothered me about this too was like I personally do not like the canvas cutting. I know that they've done that a few times now. They did it with Brock and Taker at Hell in a Cell. They did it with Gargano and Ciampa. I really don't like it, primarily because it exposes the rest of the fans and the talent. Because what you're doing there is you're saying every wrestler that's come up to this has been hitting a mat. And now we're just going to take in, like, look at all the boards that they've been hitting. You know, to me, it just exposes that everyone else has been hitting some thin layer of padding. I understand we're way past kayfabe at this point, but could this not have been just... And then Bray didn't even hit him on it when he did the Sister Abigail. He missed it entirely, and there was just...
First he hits the Uragi chokeslam.
That was for those of you who did not get this content, you're all gonna really have to listen to that Totally Awesome podcast where Joshua and I just eviscerate this show. But in grammar notes, Sky put down Uragi instead of Uranagi because Uranagi is not an easy word to spell.
It's not. The fax machine kind of got broken when I had to use Japanese.
It happens.
But I failed with the Uragi chokeslam and two Sister Abigails. He didn't even hit him on the wood part. He hit him on the pad that Braun Strowman had cut off, and then Braun somehow bleeded. I don't know where that started.
And then Bray Wyatt wins, celebrates for half a second, and then Roman Reigns, the best part of this whole match, comes and just demolishes them both with very shiny teeth.
Roman Reigns with the shiny pearly teeth.
He's been getting lessons from Chip Skylark.
Oh.
There's a reference for you kiddos out there.
Well, Roman Reigns spearing the Fiend, and then going out and spearing Braun Strowman and telling him, "You ain't a monster unless I'm here." And then goes back into the ring and spears the Fiend some more, holds up the title. This was perfect. And they have a match, those three, a match at Payback. There's going to be a contract signing on SmackDown tomorrow night. Oh, actually tonight.
Roman Reigns better not win this title.
I want Roman to win the title because Braun Strowman and The Fiend are not interesting to me as title holders. I don't care for the title holders.
I agree with that, but at the same time, if Bray Wyatt as The Fiend loses this title in a week, that's it. He's done, and he might as well just leave the company because there's nothing left for him anymore on any channel at all. I mean, it's done. His career is over. That's really the long and short of it. I like Bray. He's had some good matches. I liked The Fiend until they started doing this really, really stupid stuff with him and having him lose to Goldberg, for example, and then just destroying his mystique like they did the first time and then having him lose over and over again. And at this point, if he wins and loses his title in 1 week's time where he wasn't even able to even do something with that belt, then first of all, I'm not that the Universal title has any sort of credibility in the first place, but it would just expose to me that Bray Wyatt just is not, he's just not, he's not material. He's not worthy of material. He shouldn't be in the company, and he should just leave. Not to AEW, fuck that. But he should just leave. Because he will be officially done with WWE.
He should go to AAA.
He could work in AAA. He should go anywhere other than AEW or WWE, because I think that really that will be the final nail in Bray Wyatt's coffin as far as me ever wanting to see him on my television again.
But anyways, for real though, I really could not care less for Bray Wyatt. And that's just because of how badly his character has been butchered. Braun Strowman, the mystique is gone from him. He is colder than my turkey dinner that I'm cooking right now.
It's amazing how much star power Roman Reigns brought into that equation just by showing up and beating everybody up.
You put the title on Roman. I don't care how. I don't care why. You just do it. Because he will bring excitement and entertainment to a show that badly needs it. And if you have to sacrifice Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman for it, then so be it.
Well, this is also them booking themselves into a corner, having a pay-per-view a week after SummerSlam. But that's what WWE likes to do. So why don't we wrap this up here before we get any further into this? Your final thoughts overall of SummerSlam 2020.
So on the Totally Awesome podcast, I gave the show a 6 out of 10. And in realizing how much worse the show was after my second evaluation, I'm going to change my score and I'm going to make it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm taking a point off. I think when I was watching it the first time, I wasn't really paying attention because I was too busy trying to type up my notes as I was watching the show.
I feel you on that.
The second time around, when I was watching and I was watching more in depth, I realized how really bad this was.
This was not a good show.
I would give it an even lower score if Roman Reigns had not shown up at the end.
Yeah, this was a one-match show.
Right.
Drew and Orton killed it. Everything else was either moderate to hot garbage. And it's just a further reminder of why we don't watch WWE. It's the format is bad. They don't care anything about continuity or selling or anything that would make you want to watch, except for, like, literally you can count on one hand the amount of talent you care about on this show and on this company.
And to be clear, it is no more encapsulated in the fact that Drew McIntyre has never main evented a pay-per-view as WWE champion, and in no way did Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt deserve to main event that show.
No. And Roman's return would have had the same effect if it had gone on second to last.
Yes, if anything, it would have been better if you had Drew McIntyre main event, because then you give him a main event victory, you build up his star, so that way after this Randy Orton feud, you can have him wrestle other guys and get their star power up.
Yeah, but this is
it's
WWE.
Not that hard,
it's not.
But they refuse to do it.
It's because WWE would rather piss everybody off, alienate their fans, tank the rankings, and rake in the millions of dollars than actually give any fans what they want or care. I really am convinced they just don't know how to do it anymore, and which is why we're going to just mercifully cut this off. Skyler, thank you very much for hopping onto the show and giving us your feedback on SummerSlam 2020.
Thank you very much, Sean, and fuck you, Vince.
There you go.
Number 7.
There you go. And next week, it's going to be just me. We're going to go back to our usual regularly scheduled programming as we enter the fall. Stay tuned for Skyler's return in the third week of September for our big mid-season grand spectacular, the Hart Foundation Cup and Harvest Havoc. Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for all the upcoming Court-Martail podcast comings and goings. Thank you very much for listening, and we will be right back after these short commercials.